Hi, John Asbury here again. In this video, I'm going to give you an overview of the doctoral qualifying exam requirement in the graduate curriculum in chemistry department. The doctoral qualifying exam is the first major milestone exam that you will undertake as a graduate student. The doctoral qualifying exam, or the qualifying exam, typically is taken in the summer after your first year. It can be completed by the end of the third semester of graduate study. That is the fall of your second year. That is the latest it can be completed as specified by the graduate school. Now that qualifying exam will be the first time that your PhD committee will meet with you all together. So between identifying your graduate preceptor and scheduling your qualifying exam, you will have identified faculty to serve as committee members on your PhD committee. The composition of that committee and other details are provided in the graduate program guidelines document. Now, there are two major requirements for the qualifying exam. The first is a two-page, very short NSF Graduate Research Fellowship style research proposal. I'll describe that in more detail in just a bit. The other requirement is that you give a roughly 20-minute presentation to your PhD committee discussing your research plans. And I'll describe that in a minute as well. I say 20-minute presentation, that is if you were not interrupted during the qualifying exam. What you need to be aware of is that during the qualifying exam, you'll be asked a lot of questions by your PhD committee. So that 20-minute presentation will take about an hour, typically, because they'll have lots of questions. Okay. Now, what will those questions be about? Let me first describe the proposal, the written document, in a little bit more detail, and then we'll talk about the presentation and the experience of that exam. Okay, the proposal. So that two-page proposal, NSF-style graduate research fellowship research proposal, it's designed to be a succinct statement for you to describe your planned research with what we call big picture level. And what I mean by that is that document should describe what challenges your planned research project is intended to address. It should describe how your planned research will address those challenges, and it should discuss what the expected outcomes are going to be. What are the measurements? How will those measurements and their interpretations address the challenges? Or what are the computations? Or what is the reaction scope that you plan to expand? Okay. All of that should be described in a very short way in that research proposal, the written document. Now for the presentation. So as I mentioned, you should plan this 20-minute presentation, okay? And that presentation can provide a little bit more information than can be in that short document, but it should focus on a similar thing. It should describe the motivation for the research. Why is it important to do the thing that you're going to propose to do? And what are you trying to achieve by that? It should describe the hypotheses or the reaction scope that you plan that underpins the research plan, the mechanisms of the reaction. It should describe your progress so far, yours specifically. You'll be joining a group, and others may have worked on this project, and their work can enter. Sometimes that's important to show what you're building on. You're building on their work in some way, but it should highlight your progress so far as well. And then finally, it should describe your planned research and how that work would address the hypotheses or expand the reaction scope. So clearly the presentation is related to the contents of the short proposal, but it builds on them. Now your committee will be asking you a number of questions, and their questions are going to be geared toward um, that they feel comfortable with your understanding of the motivation of the research, the hypotheses, uh, the fundamental. You understand the fundamental concepts that underpin the work, and how will that work inform others in the field? These are questions. They'll be asking you questions to gauge your understanding of those concepts, and that's why it takes an hour. Now, a few notes about the qualifying exam experience. It's common that when you're in this qualifying exam experience, you'll be asked questions that you may not know the answer to. And that is, no one likes that. Okay, let's acknowledge this up front. But at this stage of your graduate career, it's fairly early, and it's not a big problem for you not to know the answers to those questions. Now, you should know answers to some questions. Okay, you should have thought about it to some degree. But your committee will likely ask you questions that you don't yet know during the qualifying exam. And that's okay. You should take careful notes of those questions, because those are the questions that you'll be asked again during your comprehensive exam. And during your comprehensive exam, you will need to know the answers to those questions. And so the qualifying exam is a great way for you to learn. You should, of course, be talking with your graduate preceptor, but your committee will also give you information that you should know. And then you, over the next year or so, between your qualifying and your comprehensive exams, you should dig into the literature and learn that. The last thing that the qualifying exam does is it allows you to demonstrate your proficiency in written and spoken English. And that is a requirement of the graduate school as well.